Right, welcome to the solution to problem 9-5, which is located on page 422. So we've got a special order problem, right? So do we accept or reject a special order? So we've got a company, they make a single product called a RET. They have capacity to make 30,000 per year. Some cost information is shown. RETs normally sell for $50 each. Fixed manufacturing cost is what it is, within the range of 25 through 30,000 per year. All right, number one. Assume that due to a recession, the company expects to sell only 25,000 RETs through the regular channels next year. So that means they've got capacity, spare capacity of 5,000. A large retail chain is offered to purchase 5,000 RETs if they're willing to accept a discount off the regular price. So there'd be no sales commission. Thus, variable selling expenses would be slashed by 75%, but they would have to buy a special machine to engrave the retail chain's name on the 5,000 units. The machine would cost $10,000, with no assurance that the retail chain will purchase additional units at any time in the future. Determine the impact on profits next year if the special order is accepted. Okay, so what we're talking about here is we've got spare capacity. So we are looking only at whether this 5,000 is worth it or not. It's a fairly simple problem, if you will. The stuff normally sells for $50 each. So selling price, $50 times, and they wanted a 16% reduction. So 1 minus 16%, which is 84%. So 50 times 84% is going to be $42. Okay, so now we have to go down our list here of costs and determine what is a marginal cost of producing an extra unit of production here, and then what is not. So anything that's fixed is pretty much automatically out. So let's look at this now. Direct materials, $15. Direct labor, $8. Variable overhead, $3. Fixed manufacturing overhead, because it's fixed, it's already been paid for in our production, in our first 25,000 units of production, if you want to think of it that way. Variable selling. Now, somewhere in here it said selling expenses slashed by 75%, right? So 4 times 1 minus 75%, or 25%, is $1, right? And so that works out to $27. So the contribution margin is $15 per times 5,000 units, and that works out to $75,000 less the machine, which was $10,000. So the net contribution of accepting the order, or the net benefit of accepting the order, net increase in profits from accepting the order, $65,000. But remember, in a special order scenario, we need to make sure that accepting the order will not damage our existing sales. So we don't have any information on that. So we're going to pretend that it's not going to. We can make that assumption given our lack of information. The other piece, though, it could damage our sales in two ways. Number one, if our existing customers find out about it and then demand the lower price, right? If all of our $50 paying customers come back and say, hey, $42 is what you sold the stuff to Joe over there for, so that's what we want too, then you've got a problem. The other thing, though, is if this additional 5,000 units would flood the market such that the economics of it, you were actually, by increasing supply by that much, you're reducing the global demand. for the product. In other words, the people buying it from us can't then sell it. There isn't enough demand for them to turn around and sell it to their customers, so they end up buying less and cutting back on what they purchase. We will then have damaged our own profitability as well. So those are a couple things to keep in the back of your mind when it comes to special orders, but they don't appear to apply in this case since we have no data or information about them, and we can carry on with item number 2. Refer to the original data. Assume again that the Pulaski company expects to sell only 25,000 through regular channels. The Canadian Forces would like to make a one-time only purchase of 5,000 rets. They will pay a fixed fee of $1.80 per ret, and in addition would reimburse for all the costs of production, variable and fixed, associated with the units. Since the Forces would pick the rets up with its own trucks, there will be no variable selling expenses of any type at all. If Pulaski accepts the order, by how much will profits be increased or decreased for the year? Okay. Well, let's see. So we've got, if we look at our variable costs, we've got, let's look up here, we've got direct material, direct labor, variable overhead. So that works out to 15 plus 8 plus 3 is $26. $26. Now, it does say, though, that they will pay for variable and fixed. So if we go down our list as well here, fixed manufacturing overhead, so FMOH, you know what, they're going to pay for that too, great. Variable selling, there is none. Fixed selling, that's probably going to be a hard sell as well. So I think we're stuck with the manufacturing costs and not the selling costs. That works out to $35 per production costs. And then there was going to be an extra fee of $1.80, right? I don't know what you want to call that, but extra fee. So we're looking at $36.80, but it's actually going to cost us $26 each to manufacture it. So this fixed manufacturing overhead has already been covered, and as has that. So this is revenue, right? But our variable costs are going to be $26 to actually produce the things. So the contribution margin per unit is going to be, what, $10.80. And I think that is about it. So times 5,000 units. And remember, our fixed costs have already been covered. So this is a contribution margin. This is the only, this is the net revenue, the pure profit, I guess, of taking the order. So $10.80 times 5,000 is $54,000. So not quite as profitable as option number 1 here, but it does say this is kind of, I think, separate and distinct from the from each one. So it's not like we're choosing between these two alternatives. This is you know, imagine number 1 never happened, and number 2 is what's in front of you. Otherwise, though, we would probably go with number 1, given that it looks like it pays more. But again, those other factors. If someone like the Canadian Army is buying this stuff, or the Canadian Forces is buying this stuff, then they're probably not going to turn around and sell it and damage your market. They may they'll give it to some of their own people, and you could always, you know, if your regular customers find out about what they paid you and start to grumble, you could always say it was, you know, you being patriotic or something like that. So there's a better likelihood that selling to someone like these guys will not damage your existing marketplace. Anyway, okay, number 3. Assume the same situation as described in number 2, except that the company now expects to sell 30,000 RETs through regular channels. Thus, accepting the Canadian Forces offer would require giving up regular sales of $5,000. If the Forces order is accepted, by how much will profits be increased or decreased, and from what they would be if the 5,000 RETs were sold through regular channels? Okay, so we know what the 5,000 RETs going to the Canadian Forces is. That brings in $54,000. So regular channels now, we've got a selling price of $50, variable costs of $26, so that works out to $24 contribution margin. Actually wrong, it's not purely that, because there's some variable selling in there, so I'm going to back that out. Darn it. Yeah, this is not going to be that simple. I'm going to have to list these out. Okay, so variable costs then. We've got, let's see, it was 26. The only other variable is this variable selling expense. So the variable cost is actually, here, make a bit more room. 50 variable cost is going to be 26 plus 4, 30. So our contribution margin then is going to be $20, and that will cover both the fixed manufacturing overhead and the fixed selling expense, which is being fixed is not relevant to the decision. So we are essentially looking at $20 times 5,000 units, $100,000, right? So if sell to the Canadian Armed Forces, we will lose. So we're going to lose 100,000. We're going to make 54. We will lose $46,000. That's how much we'll be worse off if we accept the Army's order. And that concludes the problem.